Please welcome Madhu Kishwar.
Thank you, World Vision Australia, AUSAID, Asia Research Centre, and IWDA for inviting me for what has been a very pleasant trip so far, though I've been here only one day. But it's a little slice of heaven as far as I'm concerned, coming from Delhi. The topic of my theme, you've talked about, is urban poverty the new danger? I think it needs to be rephrased, which is the danger that governments pose to citizens, especially the poor. It's not for nothing that poor, and the theme of my talk is how government policies keep the urban poor trapped in poverty and illegality. The little that I have understood of the lives of poor, I've come to the firm conclusion that poverty is as unnatural a condition as water spurting up. The natural flow of water is downward, but the moment you see the water going up, you know there's an artificial booster pump somewhere pushing it up. So also, when you see people trapped in poverty, the safest and the most sensible thing to do is to find out who and what is preventing them from fending for themselves. And what I'm going to share with you is two illustrative examples from the lives of street vendors and cycle rickshaw pullers. My examples will be based on data that I've collected in India, especially in Delhi, while working for policy reform for urban poor. But many of these laws and regulations apply for people in many other countries as well. And in fact, many of these ills and vicious laws we have inherited from colonial legislation during late 19th, early 20th century. Cycle rickshaws are a very, very important instant source of livelihood for rural poor when they come to cities. A person requires no real skills. He comes by the night train to a city in India, and by morning, within 2 hours, he's rented a cycle rickshaw, and by lunchtime, he's already earned enough for not only his own meal, but also saved some money. And these little remittances that the migrants send, these seasonal migrants send to villages, are a very vital source for the survival of their impoverished families in rural India. Now, also in terms of its utility, it's one of the most convenient vehicles for local shopping, carries children to school. It's like it's poor man's taxi, garbage collection, and interestingly, also carrying goods, from wholesale markets to. It's a multi-purpose vehicle, and you'll be surprised how many things this humble vehicle like a cycle rickshaw performs in Delhi. And many people thought that with the coming of cars and metro and underground railway and Toyota, buses and whatever, that this outdated vehicle will as though disappear. Quite the contrary. When I was a little child, I remember cycle rickshaws plying only in the poorer areas of Delhi. Today you find them everywhere, including elite areas, including areas that they're banned in. Now, it's interesting that in a city where less than 15% of citizens own motorized vehicles, and where cycle rickshaws are a very vital a part of local transport, and also providing a feeder service for the metro station, for the local bus stand and local marketing. And the laws that we have, instead of encouraging this eco-friendly technology, what's also important is the world over, there's great concern that there's global warming and we are consuming too much carbon and we need to reduce the carbon footprint. Here, we have a situation in India where alternative sources of transport and energy are already available. But the government tries very hard to destroy them, to make life as difficult as it can. I don't need to reiterate that they are one of the most eco-friendly vehicles. They don't consume any petrol, diesel, nothing. But this is the vehicle that is most under assault. As per government's own estimates, there are at least 600,000 cycle rickshaws in Delhi, including those that carry goods, and in addition to passengers. While there are no limits on the number of cars and trucks and buses that can ply in Delhi, there is a very strict quota on the number of licenses that can be issued to cycle rickshaws. It was fixed at 99,000 some years ago, and has been, instead of increasing that restrictive licensing regime, the quota has been reduced further to 52,000, whereas the number of private motorized vehicles in Delhi are close to 55 lakhs. 55 lakhs meaning 5.5 million? Something like that. Huge. Now, it doesn't mean that those unlicensed rickshaws alone are illegal. The way laws and rules and regulations are framed, every single cycle rickshaw in Delhi ends up being illegal and therefore vulnerable, or the pullers and owners are vulnerable to extortion. How does it work? Firstly, you need two kinds of licenses for plying a rickshaw, one an owner's license, another a puller's license. And since 2007, the government, under the guise of reforming the rickshaw policy, has stopped issuing all rickshaw licenses. It's suspended, which means in one stroke, every cycle rickshaw is illegal, which only means the bribe rates go up. But even prior to 2007, how does it work? Almost all licensed rickshaws, even prior to 2000, were illegal, because the law says that while a person can own any number of trucks, buses, or cars, or airplanes, it is illegal to own more than one cycle rickshaw. And the punishment for owning more than one cycle rickshaw is no less than confiscation and destruction of the vehicle. The madness doesn't stop there. A person who owns a taxi or a bus or a car can hire whoever he or she likes to drive that vehicle. But it is illegal for a person, an owner of a rickshaw, to rent his vehicle for hire. The owner must be puller and puller must be owner. And it's very socialist sounding, by the way, and the government justifies on those grounds. Land to the tiller, rickshaw to the puller. It's to protect the poor rickshaw pullers from the greed of these owners, because in actual fact, almost all, 99.99999% of cycle rickshaws in Delhi are owned, and in other cities, are owned by owners, or fleet owners, entrepreneurs, who may own 5 to 10 to 100 or 500 cycle rickshaws. But it's a crime to be so, to be renting a cycle rickshaw. And again, the punishment for not being the owner and the puller and the owner being the same person, confiscation and destruction of the vehicle, no less.